What do Falcons do? We rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, the show we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general the sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, the Golden Hard Dog and a lifelong sports fan. Coming back to you guys, free agency is upon us. We have had some signings for the Falcons. We've had some losses for the Falcons. Let's briefly talk about the key losses for the Falcons. I had earlier predicted that we would lose one or both of our defensive interior guys in Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata. So far, Grady Jarrett hurts to let him go, but the contract that we were paying him, as well as the contract, honestly, that he just got from Chicago, are not reflective of the player to me that he currently is. I think he's lost a lot since he's been injured the last couple of years. I appreciate everything he did over the last decade for the team. I'm sorry to see him go, but I just think that the Kirk Cousins signing has really hurt us. We knew it would, but we hoped it would work out, and it has not worked out. This has been a complete and total failure and has now caused cap casualties in the form of Grady Jarrett. Now, the other guy that I think is the most impactful that's gone is a player that was great for us. Our former fourth-round pick, Drew Dalman, paying $14 million a year to also go to the Chicago Bears. I would have loved to have seen him re-signed for that kind of money. I don't think it was really outside the realm of possibility to get him on a long-term deal here for that. I think it was reasonable for him to ask for that much, especially in light of what we've done since, such as extending Jake Matthews for $45 million, $38 million of which is guaranteed. We're paying him more over the course of 2 years than we would have been paying Drew Dalman. I would argue that the center is probably the most important component of an offensive line, aside from maybe the blindside tackle, which again, the blindside tackle is going to be Caleb McGarry for a left-handed quarterback. So we have now functionally paid the non-blindside tackle much more than what Drew Dalman is even going to get in Chicago. I would have loved to have seen him re-signed, and I do think we need to start planning for a future without Jake Matthews. It looks like we will have him for at least another couple of years. Another big move that we have made is re-signing Mike Hughes. Now, Mike Hughes has had an interesting career. He was a former first-round pick, taken by Minnesota, didn't really pan out, came to the Falcons, didn't pan out in year one, did pan out in year two, and now has been given a 3-year, $18 million deal worth about $10 million guaranteed. So I do think that's fair for him. He was a solid corner too. We missed him desperately when he was out for a short time last year. So I think that's a pretty solid signing, and it does signal to me that we are no longer looking for a corner in the first round, but now should solely be focused on getting an edge rusher or potentially a defensive interior, since we have lost Grady Jarrett. We did take 2 guys last year, in Ruka Rororo and then Brandon Dorlus. We actually took 3, but we lost one of them to basically getting poached off of our practice squad. So basically a wasted 6th round pick, but yeah, it is what it is. So we have those 2 guys who are both going to be developmental. Ruka Rororo was looking okay at the end of last year. But we're going to need him to really step up, and we're going to need Dorlus to step up. We did re-sign Taquan Graham for a little bit of time, so fairly inexpensive contract. So another veteran defensive presence, though we hope he can stay healthy. And then we've also lost Eddie Goldman, who I would say was not really worth the money that we paid him last year. I would have rather seen him stay home than to have played for us last year. We have signed Leonard Floyd to a $10 million deal, 1 year. And this feels very much like a slight upgrade from Matthew Judon. I feel like this is a guy who's going to be 33 at the start of the season. Again, I'm older than that, and I still feel young overall. But for NFL standards, for professional athlete standards, that is getting up there in years. So it's a guy that I think he's been getting 8 to 10 sacks a year for a long time, as long as he's healthy. He's a guy now that I would be happy if he can get 6.5 sacks and increase the pressure rate on the quarterbacks. If we can increase pressure rates and increase quarterback hits, force people out of the pocket, I think it will be an improvement on what we've seen. Combine him with Arnold Ebiketie and a likely edge rusher taken in the first round, we can only hope, and I think we'll be okay. We re-signed Mike Hughes, Cardell Hodge as well. Cardell Hodge is going to be more of a special teams guy. He was an Pro Bowl guy last year for special teams. So definitely a move to bolster that. I don't know what we're going to do with kicker. I imagine we're probably going to go into the season with a kicking competition. We are still paying a lot of money to Younghoe Koo, so that is something that we've got to consider. He was only 73% accurate last year. Whether he was hurt, whether his new kicking style just didn't work, I don't know. But we do need to look at a kicking competition, as that did cost us at least a couple of games last year, in addition to Kirk Cousins being hurt. So, this is a year, I think a lot of fans are looking for the big splash. The realistic side of this is we don't have the money for a big splash. We don't have the trade capital for a big splash. It doesn't exist. People are talking about Trey Hendrickson. We're not getting Trey Hendrickson. If we got him, I would be genuinely shocked. That means we gave up something that we really didn't need to give up. I do look for this team to trade out of the 15th overall pick, maybe into the mid-20s, and pick up a day 2 and day 3. I would not do it for anything less than 3 picks in the draft. I would take a later first rounder, maybe a third rounder, and let's just say a 5th or 6th round pick. I think that's a very reasonable compensation to move back 10 picks in this draft. So that is something that we desperately need, because right now we're sitting on a 1st, 2nd, 4th, and a 7th, which functionally doesn't matter. So we only have 3 picks that even matter, and 2 of them matter significantly more than the other. So, I don't know. The Falcons are in a tough spot. The Kirk Cousins deal has put us in a really tight spot. And within regards to Kirk Cousins, it looks like most of the quarterback needy teams are going to sign somebody. So I really don't know where he's going to go. It looks like Atlanta may be saddling up to keep him on as backup. That would potentially be better than cutting him this year. But you've got a guy that is not happy with you. You're not happy with him. So you're going to have an unsatisfied owner, an unsatisfied GM, and an unsatisfied backup quarterback all trying to work together. And that just seems like it is not a recipe for success. Around the league, let's talk about our own division here for just a brief moment. Nose tackle Bobby Brown with the Carolina Panthers signed on for a pretty solid deal there. They're trying to bolster up their defense here. What else have they done? They got Trayvon Moehrig, who signed a $51 million deal at safety. They had a lot of money to blow, so it looks like they've been trying to bolster up their team. J.C. Horn just signed a 4-year deal with them, so they're going to be tough. They did let go of Miles Sanders. We'll see what they do. They brought in Rico Dowdle for a 1-year deal, and then Andy Dalton has re-signed for a 2-year deal, though we all know that he is going to be sitting on the bench. So they are doing their best to try and bolster their defense here, which is something that they desperately needed last year. I don't know what they're going to do to protect Bryce Young either, because I don't think their offensive line is particularly good at this point. The Saints have managed to find money. Justin Reed is a guy that they've signed that's going to be tough for Michael Penix to navigate when we do go to the Saints. They already have been a tough out for a long time. Cam Jordan is returning for a final season and agreed to revise his contract. And then Chase Young is returning on a 3-year, $51 million deal. He had some good showings against the Falcons when he played against us, so that's going to be tough for us. And then I think a deal that doesn't really matter for them, they re-signed Jawan Johnson, their tight end, to a 3-year deal. I don't think that really matters that much. They're in a very similar boat. They've got a quarterback issue, and then they've also got a cap issue, which they pretty much always deal with. And then finally going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they re-signed Chris Godwin, which is not good for us. I really thought he was going to be gone no matter what. They also signed Hassan Reddick to a 1-year deal, a guy that the Falcons probably would have loved to have had, but we couldn't get. Still productive, even at, I think he's like 35 years old at this point, but still incredibly productive. Kind of reminds you of Calais Campbell in that regard. They re-signed Levante David, a guy that I also thought was going to be gone, and again, it's on a 1-year deal. But they're keeping a lot of their core together, and this is going to be a deal that's tough for us. They have not made any big splashes in free agency, but they're keeping a team that consistently competed with us. We beat them twice last year. I would argue some of that was pure dumb luck, but we did beat them twice last year. But it's a team that is going to be incredibly competitive and tough to deal with in our own division. So the division is getting a little bit tougher. We've got some tough opponents next year. We play the AFC East next year with 2 away games, 2 home games. We get both the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills at home. Right now, I would call both of those losses unless something can change. Maybe we beat Miami, but the Bills, I don't really have a lot of hope of beating here. And then our division's always tough. It's going to be an interesting year, but look, let's just be real for a minute. Because of some really bad contracts, and stop me if this sounds familiar. Because of some really bad contracts and being crunched up against the cap, a team that is already losing, has a losing record for now 8 years in a row, for whatever reason has a losing culture mentality, and has no ability to bring in new blood because of draft issues, not being able to draft players because we don't have draft picks, and not being able to sign players because we don't have money, and losing core foundational pieces. And we expect that team to compete and to be a division winner, or much less a playoff caliber team, but even a division winner in a weak division. I feel like we've squandered the last couple of years in a weak division. We probably could have won both of the last 2 years, and we didn't. We didn't step up to the plate either one of those 2 years. We had bad quarterback play in one of them, and then we had mixed overall results in another. Our window to win the NFC South and be dominant in the NFC South is probably closing. Now it's going to be a competition going forward for probably the next 4 to 5 years. All the teams around us are getting better, save maybe the Saints. I don't really know about them. They may get better, they may not. They're going to run into money issues at some point, but they just keep kicking the can down the road. Ultimately, something's got to give. We've got to change culture, but this is a rebuilding year. This is a year that I don't expect anything out of this team. If we get a winning record, I will be genuinely shocked. I'll be pleased. I'll be very happy, but I'll be genuinely shocked. So if I go, my thought is I've gone in with high expectations the last few years. That's done nothing but hurt me. I think it's time that we lower those expectations. Let's see what we do in the draft. Let's see what we do in the rest of free agency. We're going to make a lot of little small mini deals to try and fill out a roster, but I don't look for anything super impactful. But yeah, it's kind of a grim outlook for this season. It's never grim forever, so there will be a day when the Falcons are good again and are being run effectively again. I just don't know when that day is coming. But thank you for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. I'm sorry I don't have better news for you guys today. Free agency has started. It feels like I'm almost obligated to make a video about it. And it just seems like there's not a lot pleasant happening for the Falcons right now. I'm hopeful that these moves will be impactful. I just don't know that they actually will be. But once again, thanks for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. And as always, rise up.